The Texas afternoon shimmered in heat and light along a lonely stretch of highway outside Amarillo, a place where the landscape was as vast as it was unforgiving. Far removed from the urban sprawl of Silicon Valley, this was a town that many would pass by without a second glance, unless fate or curiosity directed their attention. Tucked away on the side of that road was a modest diner whose neon sign, though flickering in a half-hearted display of light, still beckoned to weary travelers and locals alike. On that particular day, the diner's windows were alive with the muted hues of late afternoon, the ochre of the earth mingling with a sky streaked in pastel pink and tangerine. The building itself bore the marks of time, a faded red roof, a few dents along the side, and a front door that creaked familiarly with every visitor. Inside, the aroma of frying bacon intertwined with the sweet, comforting scent of maple syrup. These smells, along with the low hum of conversation and the clink of cutlery, made the diner a sanctuary for those seeking respite from the relentless heat. It was in this unassuming haven that Elon Musk arrived. Pulling his sleek electric truck into the diner's parking lot, he exuded an air of quiet determination. Dressed in well-worn jeans and a Tesla t-shirt that spoke to his legacy in innovation, Elon's most unexpected accessory was the MAGA hat resting atop his head. A gift he had received at a conference, an artifact of a past conversation that he never thought much about. Today, however, the hat provided a shield against the relentless Texas sun, its brim casting a cool shadow over his otherwise unreadable expression. Elon parked his truck at the edge of the lot, his movements measured and unhurried. He stepped out, letting the warm air embrace him as he walked to the door of the diner. The bell above the door jingled softly as he entered, announcing his arrival to the small assembly of patrons inside. For a brief moment, his presence was nothing more than another face in the crowd. A man seeking a quiet break from the frenetic pace of his high-profile world. He chose a corner booth, one that gave him a view of the entire room while providing a sense of isolation. With the diner's battered wallpaper and the soft hum of conversation as his backdrop, he settled into his seat. As he waited for the waitress, a woman whose kind eyes and tired smile spoke of years spent serving countless travelers, Ellen ordered a plate of waffles and a steaming cup of coffee. He wasn't expecting attention today. His plan was simple: to enjoy a moment of anonymity, to savor a rare slice of quiet away from boardrooms, rockets, and the endless digital chatter of modern life. Outside, the day began its slow descent into evening. The Texas sky shifted its colors, the once blinding sunlight mellowing into a softer, almost forgiving glow. Inside the diner, the chatter continued as usual, voices rising and falling in snippets of conversation, punctuated by the occasional laughter or the sound of a coffee cup being set down with a sigh. For many, the diner was a refuge from life's harshness. For Elon, it was simply another stop on a long day's journey. Then, as if on cue, the diner's doors swung open with a louder jingle than usual. A group of 6 bikers stepped into the establishment. Their arrival was as unmistakable as it was disruptive. Clad in leather jackets adorned with patches that chronicled years of life on the road, their presence filled the room with an energy that was both raw and unapologetic. Their boots thudded purposefully against the tiled floor, and the raucous laughter and boisterous banter that followed them seemed to puncture the quiet calm that had prevailed moments before. Among these bikers was a man whose bearing immediately set him apart from the rest. A broad-shouldered figure with a grizzled beard and a leather jacket proudly displaying the nickname Bull. His gaze was sharp, and his presence demanded attention. As he and his companions took their seats, their eyes roved the diner, assessing the room and its occupants. For most, the arrival of such a crew would merely be an interruption to their meal or conversation, but for Elon, who had been lost in his quiet reverie, it was different. His eyes caught sight of Bull, and in that moment, a spark of recognition passed between them, a silent challenge hidden in a glance. Bull's eyes narrowed as they landed on Elon. The MAGA hat on Elon's head, incongruous yet undeniably eye-catching, drew his immediate ire. With a voice as cutting as the edge of a honed blade, Bull remarked loudly enough to reach every corner of the diner, "Looks like someone wandered a bit too far from Hollywood." His words sliced through the background noise, halting conversations mid-sentence and drawing the attention of every soul present. The atmosphere grew heavy with tension as Bull's statement echoed in the quiet that followed. For a heartbeat, silence reigned. The waitress, who had just been balancing a tray of dishes, paused in the middle of her step, her face tightening with unease. Elon looked up from his coffee, his calm expression betraying only a hint of curiosity. "Hollywood?" he asked in a measured tone, tilting his head slightly as if to consider the meaning behind Bull's accusation. Bull's face hardened, his eyes fixed on Elon as if studying a rare specimen. With purposeful strides, he left his table and approached the corner booth where Elon sat. Each step seemed to compress the air around him, and as he drew near, the diner felt as if it had shrunk to a space where only their confrontation mattered. "You sure about that, Bull?" Elon asked in a low, measured voice. His gaze was steady, his eyes locked on Bull's, as if daring him to escalate the encounter. "Because that hat you're wearing, it's a statement." Elon's words hung in the air, the corners of his mouth turning up in a subtle, almost enigmatic smile. "Sometimes a hat is just a hat," he continued, his tone even and unprovoked by the hostility around him. Bull's laughter, once warm and hearty among his comrades, died on his lips. His eyes flickered with a mixture of irritation and curiosity as he leaned in closer, his broad frame casting a long shadow over Elon's booth. The tension was palpable, a charged atmosphere where every slight sound became magnified. "A hat like that doesn't walk into places like this without a reason," Bull stated gravely, his voice laden with the weight of unspoken challenges. Around them, the diner's patrons watched with rapt attention. Even the clinks of silverware and the hum of the coffee machine seemed to retreat into silence, leaving only the exchange between these two unlikely figures. Elon's fingers, still resting lightly on the rim of his coffee cup, did not betray any sign of agitation. Instead, his calm demeanor invited further inquiry. "It's interesting," Elon said softly, "how a piece of fabric can carry so much weight. You're reading a lot into it." Bull blinked, momentarily taken aback by the unexpected retort. "Why is that?" he demanded, his tone gruff, yet laced with genuine curiosity. "Because it stands for something," he replied quickly. "People wear it to show which side they're on." "So, which side are you on, Mr. Big Shot?" For a long moment, Elon regarded Bull and then scanned the room. The waitress had slipped away to the kitchen, and other patrons were now peering from behind menus and coffee cups, their expressions a mix of apprehension and anticipation. A man at the counter muttered disapprovingly under his breath, shaking his head as he pushed his untouched plate aside. With deliberate calm, Elon set his coffee cup down and met Bull's gaze. "Do you really want to have this conversation here?" he asked, gesturing subtly to the assembled diners. "It seems everyone is waiting to see what comes next." Bull paused, his posture momentarily slackening as he considered the question. With a measured, almost reluctant nod, he crossed the space between them and pulled out a chair to sit opposite Elon. "You want to know what it says to me?" Bull finally asked, his voice low and deliberate, the years of hard-fought battles in his tone. "It says you're either clueless or you're looking for a fight out here. That hat carries history, a history that doesn't sit well with everyone in these parts." The diner's ambient noise resumed softly as other patrons exchanged wary glances. Even Bull's biker friends, who had lingered near the counter, now edged closer, listening intently. Elon took a deep breath, his eyes softening with a hint of reminiscence. "That's fair," he admitted, "but isn't it worth asking why someone like me might wear it? I don't wear it to pick sides. I wear it because it reminds me of the person who gave it to me." A flicker of confusion crossed Bull's face as he leaned forward. "Why then?" he asked, his voice tinged with skepticism. Elon paused, brushing his fingers along the brim of the hat, as if weighing the significance of the memory attached to it. "It was a gift," he explained quietly. "A retired engineer, a man who spent his life solving problems that most wouldn't even notice, gave it to me. We had a conversation about hard work, about innovation, and about the responsibility to leave something better than what we found. To me, that hat isn't a political statement. It's a reminder of that man's legacy and the idea that even small gestures can carry profound meaning." The sincerity in Elon's voice cut through the charged atmosphere like a knife. For a long moment, Bull's expression softened imperceptibly. The leather of his jacket creaked as he shifted in his seat, his gaze thoughtful now rather than confrontational. "That's different," he finally conceded after a long pause. "But you gotta know how it looks to folks out here." Elon nodded in agreement. "Absolutely," he said. "I respect that perspective. But perhaps instead of judging someone based solely on what they wear, we might try talking about what we stand for, about what truly matters." The diner's silence deepened as the conversation took on an almost philosophical tone. Bull's biker comrades exchanged uncertain glances, as though suddenly unsure whether to escalate the tension or allow the dialogue to continue. After another pause, one of them, a wiry man sporting a scar along his cheek, spoke up in a low voice. "All right, genius, what is it you stand for?" Elon's eyes swept the room, meeting the faces of those who had gathered in silent witness to this unlikely encounter. "I stand for moving forward," he declared quietly. "For finding common ground even when the world seems split in two, and for believing that no matter how different our paths may be, we can always choose to connect." The words seemed to hang in the air, resonating with a depth that even the hardened faces of the bikers could not ignore. Bull's eyes narrowed again as he considered the notion. "So what's your idea of moving forward?" he asked, his tone still guarded, yet less hostile than before. Elon leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "Moving forward starts with conversations like this one," he said, his voice imbued with conviction. "People assume the worst about each other without ever taking the time to ask, why? Look at us. We came from different worlds, but here we are, questioning, listening, and maybe even learning something new." For a few long seconds, neither man spoke. The diner's patrons listened with bated breath, the tension replaced by a palpable sense of curiosity. Finally, Bull exhaled slowly and then asked, "All right then, why'd you really come here today? A guy like you doesn't usually end up in a hole-in-the-wall diner in the middle of Texas just for waffles." A small smile played at the corner of Elon's mouth as he replied, "Believe it or not, I'm scouting locations for a new project. I like to see things for myself, to talk to people, and get a sense of the places I might help shape with new ideas." His tone was sincere, and even Bull's skeptical eyes betrayed a spark of interest. The wiry biker with the scar chimed in again. "So, you're saying you're here to listen and learn, not just to sell us some fancy dream?" Elon shook his head. "No sales pitch, I promise. Just a conversation. And if you're curious, an invitation to see something that might change your perspective." Bull's gaze was still fixed on Elon, his mind clearly wrestling with the idea of embracing something new. "You think all this tech stuff can fix the world?" he asked finally, his voice quieter, almost reflective. For someone who spent a lifetime fixing old machines and living by a code of hard work, it sounds like a far-off dream. Elon's response was gentle but firm. "I believe technology is a tool," he said. "It's not the machines or the gadgets themselves. It's about how we use them to build bridges rather than walls. What I'm trying to do, what we all should be striving for, is to find new ways to bring people together, even when it feels like our differences are too vast to bridge." There was a pause as Bull absorbed those words. Slowly, he crossed his arms and then extended a tentative nod. "All right," he said finally, his tone less confrontational now. "You've got my attention. What's your next move then?" Elon's eyes lit up as he leaned back slightly. "I have something I'd like to show you," he said. "How about a tour? I have a Tesla facility not too far from here, and I'd be honored if you'd come see what we're building, and maybe even how it could help people like you." A ripple of murmurs spread among Bull's crew. They exchanged skeptical yet intrigued looks. After a long moment, Bull's broad shoulders relaxed just a touch. "Why the hell not?" he said gruffly. "But if this is some kind of sales pitch, count us out." Elon offered a small, genuine smile. "No pitch," he insisted, "just an invitation. Come with me, and let's see if we can find some common ground." The invitation hung in the air like a challenge, a chance to see a world that up until now had seemed completely alien to these rugged bikers. With a slow, deliberate motion, Bull nodded and gestured to his companions. "All right, let's do it," he said. Outside, parked near the diner's edge, stood Elon's Cybertruck, a marvel of futuristic design that seemed almost out of place against the backdrop of weathered pickup trucks and time-worn sedans. Its angular lines and sleek surfaces caught the light in a way that made it look almost otherworldly, as if it had arrived not from Earth, but from a distant future. The group of bikers approached the truck with a mixture of curiosity and wariness. One of the younger bikers, a lanky fellow with a red bandana tied around his head, let out an appreciative whistle. "That's yours?" he asked, nodding toward the gleaming vehicle. Elon chuckled softly. "Sure is," he replied, retrieving a keycard from his pocket. With a single swipe, the Cybertruck's door handles popped out, and the headlights blinked on in a welcoming display. "Hop in," he said casually. "It's not far." The bikers eyed the spacious cab with a mix of astonishment and hesitation. "All of us?" one of them asked, his voice betraying a blend of skepticism and intrigue. "It'll be tight, but you'll fit," Elon assured with a warm smile. Bull crossed his arms, his gaze narrowing as he eyed the futuristic truck. "We're not piling in until you tell us exactly what we're getting into," he declared. Leaning casually against the truck, Elon met Bull's stare. "What you're getting into," he said, "is a chance to see something different, a glimpse into a future where innovation isn't about tearing us apart, but about bringing us together. I know you might not trust me yet, but I think what I'm about to show you might just change your mind." The group exchanged murmurs among themselves. Finally, with a curt nod, Bull stepped forward and motioned for his crew to follow. One by one, the bikers climbed into the Cybertruck, their leather jackets and heavy boots contrasting sharply with the sleek modern interior. As they settled into the seats, the hum of the truck's engine filled the brief silence, and Elon began to drive. The ride was a quiet journey punctuated by snippets of conversation. Elon's voice was soft yet sincere as he spoke about his work, not in the polished tones of a salesman, but in the earnest cadence of someone sharing his vision. "You know," he began, "most people think Tesla is just about fancy cars and high prices, but what we're doing goes much deeper. We're trying to change the way we think about energy, about transportation, and ultimately about our relationship with the world around us." The bikers listened, some nodding slowly, others simply watching the shifting landscapes outside the truck's panoramic windows. The road led them away from the diner's comforting familiarity and toward the horizon, where the modern silhouette of a sprawling Tesla facility came into view. The building, a gleaming structure of glass and steel, seemed to capture the promise of innovation and the hope of a better future. When they arrived at the facility, Elon parked near the entrance and stepped out, inviting his new companions to follow. "This," he said with a gesture that encompassed the futuristic complex, "is where the magic happens." The bikers hesitated for a moment at the threshold, their boots crunching on the pristine concrete as they took in the stark contrast between the high-tech building and the rustic world they were accustomed to. Bull's eyes scanned the area with a mixture of suspicion and awe. With Elon swiping a keycard, the massive glass doors slid open with a smooth whoosh, revealing an interior that buzzed with the quiet hum of industry and progress. Inside, the facility was a world apart. The air was cool and clean, a welcome relief from the harsh Texas heat. And the gentle buzz of machinery and the soft footsteps of workers lent an almost meditative rhythm to the space. Giant screens displayed real-time production metrics, while robots and human technicians worked side by side with a precision that spoke of years of innovation. As Elon led the way, he pointed out various stations: a battery assembly line where sleek modules were meticulously crafted, a solar panel testing area where engineers measured durability under simulated conditions, and a prototype workshop where a new, more affordable electric vehicle was taking shape. "It's impressive," Bull murmured as they paused at a section dedicated to energy storage systems. "But how does any of this help someone like me? I've spent my life fixing old machines, building things with my own hands. How does your fancy technology change that?" Elon turned to face Bull, his expression earnest. "Because it shows what's possible," he replied. "Sometimes we get stuck in the old ways of thinking. When you see something built from the ground up with a new vision, something that solves problems in ways we never imagined, it can open your mind to the possibility that you, too, could be part of that change." For several long minutes, the two men regarded each other in silence. Around them, the facility pulsed with the rhythm of progress, and even the skeptical bikers seemed to be drawn into the conversation by the gravity of the moment. The wiry biker with the red bandana, who had been quiet until now, finally spoke in a low voice. "So, you really think all this tech stuff can fix the world? That it can make things better for folks like us?" Elon's tone grew serious as he answered, "I don't think technology is a magic fix. I believe it's a tool that can either build walls or bridges, depending on how we use it. I'm not here to preach. I'm here to show you that progress doesn't have to be a zero-sum game. We have challenges, no doubt about it, but if we start by listening and working together, we can build a future where everyone benefits." As the tour continued, Elon shared stories of breakthroughs, of nights spent in laboratories with teams of engineers, and of the countless failures that had paved the way to success. His passion was contagious, and gradually even Bull's skeptical posture softened as he began to see that behind the polished exterior of technology lay the same grit, determination, and spirit of innovation that had always defined those who built things with their own hands. By the time the tour came to an end, the once tense atmosphere had given way to a sense of cautious camaraderie. Standing near the entrance of the facility, Elon looked at each of the bikers, his voice gentle yet resolute. "Look, I'm not saying this place will solve every problem in the world," he said, "but it's a start, a step towards something different. And if you're ever curious to see more, or if you want to understand how technology can work for you, you're always welcome here." Bull regarded him silently for a moment, then slowly extended his hand. "You're an odd guy, Musk," he said gruffly, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "We don't agree on everything, but I respect you for putting your money where your mouth is." Elon shook Bull's hand firmly. "And I respect you for listening. That's the hardest part." A few nods and murmurs of assent passed among the bikers. One of the younger riders, still sporting the red bandana, added quietly, "Maybe there's something in all this after all." Later that evening, as the Cybertruck rolled back into the dusty parking lot of the diner, the mood was markedly different from when the bikers had first arrived. The once tense group now sat together in a circle near their motorcycles, the earlier hostility replaced by a reflective silence. Bull, the once imposing leader, now seemed to carry an air of quiet introspection as he watched the fading light of day. Elon stepped out of his truck and lingered for a moment, his eyes scanning the horizon where the modern lines of the Tesla facility melted into the Texas twilight. "I've been to a lot of places," he said softly, almost to himself, "met a lot of people. But today reminded me why it's important to have these conversations, not just about technology, but about who we are and where we're headed." Bull met his gaze, his expression unreadable for a moment before he spoke. "You talk a good game, Musk," he admitted, his voice still gruff but with a trace of genuine respect. "I'll admit, you showed us something today that made me think, and that doesn't happen often." Elon offered a wry smile. "Thinking's the first step. Action comes next." The group parted ways in the parking lot, their farewells less hostile than their initial encounter. As the bikers revved their engines and disappeared down the road, Elon lingered for a moment longer by his Cybertruck. He turned the key card, watching as the vehicle hummed to life, and felt a renewed sense of purpose. Today's unexpected encounter was a reminder that progress wasn't solely measured in rockets launched or cars built. It was measured in conversations, in the bridges built between disparate worlds. Later that night, back at his temporary hotel in Amarillo, Elon sat in a quiet corner of a modest lobby lounge. The events of the day replayed in his mind like scenes from a movie, each moment laden with potential, each conversation a spark that might ignite a broader change. He thought about the MAGA hat perched on his head earlier, once an ambiguous accessory, and now a symbol of the complex ways in which ideas, memories, and identity, for him, it was a reminder of a mentor's legacy, a call to keep questioning assumptions, to remain curious about the world, and to always seek understanding, even in unexpected encounters. Across town, in a modest garage turned into a makeshift meeting space, Bull and a few of his closest biker friends gathered around a battered table. They talked in low voices about the day's events. Bull, usually a man of few words, found himself reflecting on Elon's invitation, on the possibility that maybe the future wasn't as distant as he'd always thought. "We're all trying to fix things," he said, his tone softer than usual, "in our own way. Maybe there's a bridge to be built between what we know and what we could learn." The conversation meandered late into the night, evolving from skepticism to a tentative openness. Though they did not all agree on everything, the bikers recognized that sometimes the smallest spark, a conversation in a dusty diner, a shared meal, a quiet ride in a futuristic truck, could illuminate possibilities they had never imagined. In the days and weeks that followed, word of the unusual meeting at the Amarillo diner spread throughout the region. Locals recounted the story in hushed tones, often embellishing details for dramatic effect, but always with a sense of wonder at how two worlds had collided in such an unexpected way. In small towns and along lonely highways, the tale of the Tesla rider and the biker leader became a symbol of possibility, a reminder that behind every hardened exterior lay the potential for connection. Elon continued on his journey, visiting various communities, listening to their stories, and sharing his vision of a future where technology served to unite rather than divide. Bull and his crew, too, found themselves questioning old assumptions. Conversations that had once seemed impossible were now part of everyday life. And slowly, a bridge was being built between worlds that had long been separated by suspicion and misunderstanding. Months later, in a quiet meeting held in a refurbished community center in a nearby town, representatives from both sides, the innovative entrepreneurs and the rugged road warriors, sat together discussing practical ideas for local improvement projects. Ideas flowed freely. Renewable energy installations for off-grid communities, workshops on maintaining both modern and traditional machinery, and even joint rides to raise awareness about the potential for technology to enhance local lives without erasing the values of hard work and self-reliance. As the sun rose on a new day in Texas, Bull found himself looking at the horizon with a sense of cautious optimism. The road ahead was uncertain, and challenges would always persist, but the unexpected conversation that began over waffles in a roadside diner had opened a door through which progress, understanding, and mutual respect might finally begin to cross over. For Elon, it was another reminder that every encounter, no matter how fleeting or unlikely, held the potential to spark lasting change. And for those who had once seen each other as adversaries, the simple act of listening had paved the way for a future where differences were no longer obstacles, but rather stepping stones toward a shared destiny. In the quiet aftermath of that fateful day, as the memories of clashing opinions and tentative smiles lingered in the minds of all who had been there, one undeniable truth emerged. Progress is best achieved not by imposing views, but by engaging in open dialogue, even when that dialogue begins with a single, seemingly insignificant accessory on someone's head. The story of the diner encounter in Texas would be told for years to come, a story that reminded everyone that sometimes the most transformative moments occur when we least expect them, in places where our worlds collide, and in conversations that begin with a question as simple as, "Why do you wear that hat?" And so, as the day gave way to night and the long Texas road beckoned once again, both Elon and Bull carried with them a newfound understanding, a belief that even in a divided world, there is always room for dialogue, empathy, and a willingness to see beyond the surface.